Hey guys, welcome back to Tools and Tech. Today we'll be installing a remote car starter on the O3 Matrix. Alright, what do we got here today? It is a ProStart remote car starter. This is a Canadian Tire branded remote car starter, and I believe Viper is the one who makes these, and they have a bunch of other subsidiary brands under them. I believe AutoStart is one, and a couple others under the Viper brand, but this is the Canadian Tire brand ProStart. Used them before and they were all successful in their run that I had with the car, so I'm going to use them again. This is a one-way, and looks like the range goes up to 950 feet or 290 meters, and that's what we'll be using today. Alright, just show you, we got the box here, we got the instructions manual here, we got the wiring diagram for the unit. It says to visit ProStart.org for a more detailed manual, but that site does not no longer exist. But if you do look up the receiver number, which is the CT-3271, you can find the full manual on, I believe it's manuallib.com. And we got the variety of harness cables, and in here we'll show directly what each harness and which wire goes where. And we got the antenna, and also have the remote, and you also have the cable for the antenna and the hood pin. And another thing that you'll need for completing the remote starter installation is a wiring diagram of your vehicle. This will include all the different wires that you will need to connect to, their location, and their polarity as well. I've used this one from commandolalarms.com, I believe it was. Pretty detailed, pretty descriptive. So far, they were pretty accurate in what they've written and provided. And they also provide some extra information at the bottom below. I did already have a quick look at my vehicle and had a look at the ignition switch harness there. I did not find a key sense wire on my 2003 Matrix. I have a base model, and it does not have power windows or even alarm fitted. And for the 2003 year model, I was informed that it does not have an immobilizer. So I'm assuming that might be the reason why there's not one on the ignition switch harness for this vehicle. Now, just an overview of what's going to be done for this installation. I'm not going to go over one by one of me cutting into each wire of the car. I'm just going to show you a brief overview on the bench here of exactly what's going to be done in order to complete the process. Now, since you do have your wiring diagram and it does show you which wire does what, you still kind of want to test it just to make sure it is accurate. Different year models, different trims might be a little different, so you just want to confirm before you start cutting into things. I'm just going to go over the main ones here. For your 12-volt constant on, say, the back of your ignition switch tumbler there, you do want to get something like a voltmeter or test light. This is a test light with a voltmeter built in. And if you are looking for 12 volts constant, you would just probe the wire that would be indicated on your wiring diagram. Let's just say if it's this red wire. You probe it and you get 12 volt constant all the time. That's going to be your 12 volt constant. And just moving down to the starter. Now, say if the yellow wire is your starter, you want to probe the back. And to check the starter will only get 12 volts as the key is cranked. And it'll 12 volts in the crank position, and once you let go of the crank position, it'll go back down to 0. That will be your starter. Now, and for your ignition wires, you will have, say if this other red one here is your ignition wire, once you probe it, you should only get 12 volts in the run position. So not the accessory, but the on position, and you should get 12 volts only in that position. Any other position, it should get only read 0. And the same with your accessory. When you probe it, you should get 12 volts in the accessory position. One thing to keep in mind of when you're wiring this, some cars have more than one ignition and more than one starter wire. And for most remote starters, they only have one lead for the ignition or one lead for the starter. Some remote starters, like the one I have, they have an extra wire for a secondary, so one extra wire for a starter 2 or extra wire for ignition 2. But let's say if your car has 2 starter wires and 2 ignition wires, you're going to need a relay. And I'll leave a link down in the description just how to wire one of those up, but you can't just go and twist them together and just tack it off with one lead. Now, to join the wires from the harness to your, say, your ignition switch tumbler, you're going to need one of these guys, a wire stripper. I prefer these ones here. There's other models you can get, but I think this one works best in this application. Basically, you'll just take the wire, put it in there, strip it back, and you expose a bit of the wire there. Now, you could expose a little more. Just try to grab where you already cut and just peel it back a little more. Just make sure you don't break any strands. And there's your wire exposed right here. Now, with the shielding stripped back, you'll want to use something that can poke through the wire. Something like an awl would work great for this. I don't have one, but I do have my test light end here. And basically, you want to get right in the middle and kind of evenly distribute the strands here. And just trying to make a hole right in the middle there, just to separate the two wires, just like that. And this is just be like on your ignition tumbler there going into the car. So this is how you want it to look. And now let's just say this white wire here is the wire coming from your remote starter harness that you're trying to connect to the factory ignition harness here. You want to follow which way the harness is coming. So if the wires are going out that way, you kind of want to match the direction of the harness. So you kind of want to connect the wire running up from this side just to make everything neater. And when you button everything up and put all the covers back, it'll be a lot easier to route these wires. But having said so, you want to stick the wire through the loop and then just go ahead and wrap the wire, spin it around the opening you got there, and just make a nice tight connection there. Sometimes you do want to cut back a little more. Makes it even make a nicer cut, but yeah. Now with the wires nicely connected there, you can go ahead and solder that and make it a permanent connection now. And once you're done that, just wrap it tightly in electrical tape. And also, if you want, you can put a zip tie around it just to further hold the connection together. Now, if you're a little new to soldering, you just want to make sure you don't heat this wire up too much, because you'll probably end up burning it. And say if you got this connected to anything, you'll probably end up shorting something out. So just be mindful of that when you're soldering. You probably just want a little bit here just to glob it on, just to make sure it just stays tight. And just basically has to hold. And once you have the electrical tape around, and if you do choose to zip tie it, you should be fine the other way. But regardless, if you do smell burning chicken while you are soldering, that means you are holding the iron wrong. Now, with that being said, let's go up to the car and make the connections out there. Alright guys, I'm going to show you where I'm at right now. I'm not going to go over soldering the wires or connecting together or anything like that. It's pretty much straightforward with that. I'm just going to show you where you can find things in case you're wondering. This is the ignition tumbler right here. This is where you're going to get the ignition power off of, and the starter wire and all that. For the 12-volt constant, I'll be grabbing that off the battery. I just think it's a much cleaner source to grab it off of there opposed to running it off of this skinny little wire here. Going over, if you can see in the back there, that focus right there, that switch where my fingers are pointing on. That's where your brake switch is. Just grab, I believe it's the green and white wire off of that one for the brake switch. And down here in the kick panel here, there's this blue plug here. You'll get your unlock and lock switches from there, and that is going to be a green wire and a blue wire with a yellow stripe for the unlock. And if you go down here in this big harness here, if you look through here, there should be a green wire. That should be a positive lead for your parking lights. I did try to go for the parking negative on the headlight switch here, but I couldn't find it. It said it was a green white, but I did not locate a green white in that harness there. unless it's a rather old car, so unless these wires have faded and maybe that white is now yellow, I'm not too sure. But if you go down there, it should be pretty cut and clear of where a green wire is for the parking lights. Moving under the hood here, I did poke through the firewall there to run the power wire for the module, and also this white wire here goes to this hood pin here. I use this hole here, but I had to drill it a little bigger just to get the pin inside of it properly. But just ran it over there, all around there. I already have an amplifier hooked up here, so I just followed the wire for that, and yeah, just tacked it to that positive terminal for that one, and ran the tack wire, the hook pin wire right under there. Now for the tack wire, if you look at some of these wiring diagrams, it says the ECM behind the glove box, the far right wire, far right plug, black wire. So once you have your glove box apart here, there is this cover here that sits up there. There's two tabs. Just bring those two down, and the ECM just is bolted into there, and there's like a little clip at the back. You just pull it out and kind of drop it down. It comes right out. So for the far right wire, it's mounted up like this. So it's mounted in reverse essentially. So your far right wire, it's supposed to be, once you turn it around, it'll be this plug here. So it mounts up like this way, but once you bring it down, this is your far right wire, and it's going to be this pin here, this black one, pin number 5. If you have access to a diagram, it's going to be this one here, and that's where I tacked the tachometer wire off of. Just a bit of clarification, because that was a bit confusing. Now, every remote starter is different, so you'll have to consult the manual and do the proper programming before you actually try to remote start it. The main thing I always see is people try to remote start the car, but they haven't learned a tachometer or anything as of that as yet. Just take the time and just go over the manual and just make sure you have all the right settings, especially for things like the door lock. Some door locks require a double pulse, so it unlocks all the doors. And just to let you know, guys, if you don't wire the lock and unlock wires to your remote starter, sometimes when the vehicle is running on some cars, the factory remote will not lock or unlock the vehicle. So say if you do remote to start the car, you'll have to stick your car key in the keyhole in order to unlock the doors to get in. Alright, without further ado, once we've checked our terminals, just make sure the battery terminals are tight. All your wires are loomed. You put silicone on the firewall boot to prevent any moisture coming in. It's ready, time to go. Let's see if it works. And there you have it, their fully installed remote starter. And if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, please like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more content. Thanks and goodbye.